Yes.
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 New for 96. With your hosts, Kevin McCauley and Chris Nguyen.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
If we use
Yes.
that as the sound, the test for the levels, it's just going to sound like a table read for a pornography. Okay, then you say yes, and then you say yes.
That's a good bit. That's a very good bit.
Yeah, I'm going to save that one for a dinner party.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how I'm going to test people's levels at a dinner party. I'm usually very testing to begin with anyways at dinner parties.
It's an elaborate thing where you say we're going to do a podcast just so you can make that setup.
Yeah, pretty
set up
much.
that
That's
joke.
it. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks. Let's call it a night.
So we're back.
We're back. So after a mild hiatus, we're going to go ahead and call this Season 3.
It looks like we planned it that way.
I know. Yeah.
Yes.
Even though, I mean, it was our season finale. Did we have a cliffhanger?
Yeah, I thought you died.
Yeah. Well, Jordan was here.
That's true.
Yeah. I died a little bit when the mirror snapped off of my little Carrera 3.2 model.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That is actually something that is probably not known because it's been a little while since we recorded that.
Yes.
So in between,
We didn't
usually
talk about. Yeah, that happened after the record.
that happened
And then
after the record.
I posted a picture of it on
You
the
did.
Instagram in like the 5th slide of the pictures.
Yeah. So not to embarrass Jordan, but we usually have model cars, 1/18th scale die casts on the table, a selection of them, and I think I had a bunch of air-cooleds because it was Jordan Rameljaj of Modern Air Cooled. I don't know why I'm like calling him out very specifically right now.
I think we all know why.
I feel like if you're around diecasts not very often and you want to pick one up, there's only one natural way to do it, which is to kind of like King Kong it and come down from the top and pick it up and basically just squeeze the sides. And so one of the mirrors popped off of I think it's a lime green Carrera 3.2.
It's a good model.
It's a really good model.
And so that model, to the people out there, this is like easy to find, right? Like it's commonly available. It's still in production. You can buy a new replacement.
That's what I told Jordan to make him feel better. Yes.
Okay. Good.
No, Jordan was very nice about it. He did not need to like do anything, but he surprised me with like a replacement of it, which he absolutely did not need to do, but I was very appreciative of that. And then I promptly broke the mirror on that.
We've got a good show.
We've got a good show.
This is a good-
We've had some time
We have some topics.
ruminate on things.
And
workshop
I have
topics.
got
Yes.
some insane segues.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
So whenever we conclude a topic and move to another, I will announce, here comes a segue.
Yeah.
And then I will smoothly glide into the next
Oh,
subject matter.
my God.
And then we will, that was not meant to sound sexual. Then we will commence with the next discussion topic.
Okay. This is very exciting. Stay tuned after these messages, which is to say the rest of this podcast. So, what do we got?
Oh, I wasn't prepared.
Why did I write out these cue cards?
The first thing I wanted to talk about was, this is something that was kind of on my mind. This is a patented Kevin's Corner rant.
Oh dear God!
About
this is like Andy Rooney, but
yeah,
somehow older and crankier.
Kent Brockman's My 2 cents.
Yes.
Just thinking about how we used to, when we were growing up, we would read the car magazines.
Yes.
We would read the performance figures. We'd read the numbers. We'd read the comparison tests. And that doesn't really exist now in a capacity where people talk about it and you get with your friends and you talk about it. We don't really have that. Car magazines still exist. They still have a place, but it is a obviously diminished capacity.
Right.
And the thing that serves as our automotive water cooler is, did you see this auction? Or I send you a link. Look at this car. Look at this.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, all the best, to see a lot of of good car pictures or to see a lot of interesting cars, and it's for sale. And it's just what is disturbing is that like we've taken this thing where it's like we loved the car magazines, we love cars because of the enjoyment of cars, and now it is like tied into commerce.
You're talking specifically about basically what car culture has become on like at least in a conversational level where perhaps where you start talking about where we might have in the past talked about like, in the mid 90s, like an M3, C63, S4, like Comparo of some kind, and then talk about that. And now it's more like, did you see what that Euro E36 M3 went for on BAT?
Yes.
And et cetera.
Or I send you a link and we immediately talk about the price and the wear and the seats.
But no, I agree with you. Like now it's about the value of cars, which is very strange.
And it's, I mean, even if
or the rarity,
but even if I'm sending you like, look at this, amazing car or weird race car or whatever, even if I'm sending you a link, we're not necessarily talking about the value, but the value is inextricable from it. It's on the page. It is a part of it. It is discussed. And so even if that is not the thing, like, we find the price of cars to be the least interesting thing about cars. Well, but like when we send each other that stuff, it's like the value is a bigger piece of the pie of discussion than it was 20 years ago.
It is, especially because it's not just vintage cars. It's now new cars as well, because people are just buying and flipping cars. And so like new interesting cars, you can talk about it basically from the standpoint of like having read something on a blog about this brand new car, but eventually what's going to take over is the fact that these are selling for like $100,000 over MSRP.
Right.
And so that will be the conversation that takes over, performance aspects or whatever of it. And so
it's like, I don't blame Bring-A-Trailer for the price of cars. Like I think it's a million other factors, not least of which is that new cars are not delivering something that people want.
Why do you think it is that we, and I say we in a very broad sense, because now it's just basically people who notice cars. They're not even necessarily interested in cars. Why they're so focused on the value of it. And you and I mean, I'll send you things as well where I'm just like blown away by like auction results, this or that. And or just even just casual, it all comes back down to like the first thing you look at is what the auction result is.
Right.
Is that the most fascinating thing now about cars is what they're worth?
I don't know. I mean, it just seems like every element of our culture is like just funneled towards money and commerce and finite resources and haves and haves not. This is just reflecting on that as well.
It is very much that. And I'm trying to think back in the past, like even when it, in the mid 2000s, like what did we talk about? Like how did we communicate when it came to talking about cars?
I think it was like, did you see the latest like Top Gear segment or this car reveal? I think talking about car reveals was a lot bigger because we were excited.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
It's like, oh, this is the new whatever, therefore it's better than the old whatever. And now it's like when a car comes out in 2022 or 2023, it's like, well, it's probably going to be worse in a lot of key ways than what it replaces.
You know what? Even on YouTube, say for instance, like car reviews are often framed around how much the car costs from the start, and whether it's kind of like a $100,000 bargain, now like it's $10,000, like this and that, or like, this is the best $300,000 car you can buy, or whatever, like the review, like it does seem to be framed around value, monetary value.
I guess that is like the overarching metric that is a lot easier for people to grasp, especially if they're not as interested or they don't know the history, or they're not like super caught up on every single thing or whatever. At least that's a metric that anyone can grasp. Yeah. And either it's shockingly low or shockingly high, but it's approachable in a way that like extremely car nerdery stuff might not be. But what I was just thinking is when I talked about how in the mid 2000s, I remember 2000 to 2010, it was just, I would read old Jalopnik, read old Autoblog, and you see the car, they would reveal photos or auto show reveals, and it's like, oh, did you see what that looked like? Did you see that car? And the thing that kind of reminds me of that now, the only time we see this is where it's like, did you see the new like Korean car design? Like, did you see the new like Elantra N or something? We kind of would text with our groups of friends where it's like, oh, did you see that? Or like, did you see the new Genesis design? Because a lot of these are just such bold, interesting designs. It's kind of the only place that we see that today.
Yeah.
Where there is just kind of the shock of like, hey, did you guys see how crazy this car looks? That is exciting. That's like one little facet of that excitement that we used to have, just kind of with all car design, and and now it just kind of only exists in this slim plane of existence.
It does. I mean, they're actively trying to produce interesting. They're trying to find like the next greatest way to approach car design. I feel like versus like, say for instance, like the new Accord just came out and it's extremely bland. I'm surprised because the last one looked pretty good. For whatever reason, they just kind of like straightened out lines, kind of simplified detail, and it went backwards in my opinion. But maybe this is just where like easily digestible car design, things that don't mean or ever want to offend because it's a volume seller. I mean, Hyundais are also volume sellers, and they seem to do fine with their... I mean, I was driving behind a Sonata the other day, and I love that tapered rear end, like how that looks. And the front is controversial. Like, you know, I don't love it, but I don't hate it. But that rear end looks so good.
So crisp.
You know, I actually found myself the other day a little bit curious about, you know, what about a Genesis? Like, could I see myself, you know, buying a G70 manual or something like that? And while it's not quite the car for me, or nor is Genesis cars in general, but I started thinking like they're really good looking. Like I find myself drawn to them.
Yeah.
And mainly just from a design standpoint, it works.
Yeah.
What's next?
Oh, okay. I'm preparing to launch into a segue.
Oh no.
Speaking of Bring-A-Trailer.
Yes.
Our friend Bradley Brownell is making a new website venture. I mean, I think it's just like a fun little website he's putting together. But
wait,
what?
Are the initials BAT? Bring a take?
A take? Oh, that's good. That's good. Actually, it's a website kind of like how Bring-A-Trailer started, where Bring-A-Trailer just used to be, here are some, we've poured over all of the classifieds on the web, and here are some interesting cars that we have highlighted.
Yeah.
And so he and some friends, I guess, want to do that, but for probably some classifieds, but a lot of like auction sites. I mean, there's 1,000 cars a week on BAT.
Yeah.
So how do you find something cool or interesting or whatever if you're not reading every one of the emails and looking through the site every day? So they will just kind of collate the good stuff from various auction sites around the web. So we will possibly insert a call with Brad, just a little chat, and he wants to talk about it, or we might not.
And if he doesn't answer our call, we will then be doing his voice. We'll be reading a transcript that we've written up ourselves about this. Now, this sounds interesting because BAT was... I don't remember how I came across BAT in the first place, but it was so... Like, I was immediately drawn to it because I was already looking at classifieds all day long anyways.
Yeah.
And there's another one, too, called German Cars for Sale that I still follow. And
they never update.
They do.
Okay.
Actually, they update, like, I think multiple times a week still.
Okay.
Yeah. I only know that because I still have, like, an RSS reader.
Oh, okay.
When I'm brushing my teeth in the morning, I'll, like, scan past a few posts. But my Carrera was on there.
Whoa.
At, like, in 20...
When it was really low?
14. Oh, yeah. Like, I think it was listed at 20 grand or something.
No, I meant, like, lowered.
Oh, it was lower. Yeah. Both in value. See, I can only go to the value. So, and it was, like, like when it was listed, maybe we'll post a picture from it, but it didn't have a tail at the time, and it was extremely low. Like the tires were above the fender line, so it was low.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that sounds interesting, though.
Yeah. Let's see what Brad has to say right now.
Hello.
Well, hello, Brad. Good to talk to you. So tell me about Parked on the Block.
You know what Bring-A-Trailer used to be before they were an auction site? It's kind of like that.
It was just finding cool classifieds from around the web.
Yes. And so we were having a conversation. It was me and the guys from Auto Off Topic and a couple others that are involved in this. And we were all kind of talking about there are too many auction sites these days, and it's impossible to follow all of them. Because, like, just Bring-A-Trailer alone, there's like 630 auctions running right now. And that's a ton. And that, I mean, so you've got, not only do you have Bring-A-Trailer, but you've got Cars and Bids, you've got P-Car Market, you've got Hemmings, and you've got Haggerty, and, you know, Marked. I know that's your favorite one.
Mm-hmm. Trademark, register mark.
And so, you know, not only that, but you've got all of these online auctions, but then you've got the in-person auction, your RM Sotheby's and your, you know, Barrett Jacksons and whatnot. And then you've got the traditional sources, the eBay Motors and the Craigslist and the Facebook Marketplace. It's impossible to find anything, let alone, like, you find a cool thing and maybe you'll post it to Twitter. You know, we're kind of out there, there's 6 of us right now that are out there scouring the internet to find weird stuff that really gets us going. And we just want to show it to all our friends. So that's kind of what the site is. I don't want to call it a throwback to forums, but it's a little bit that. There's a comment section. There's a place where people can submit cool stuff that they've found. There's, you know, we'll have some unique listings that aren't available anywhere else. You know, friends of ours that are selling stuff or readers who are selling stuff. We'd be happy to list.
You're going to start doing your own auctions, and you're going to follow the Bring-A-Trailer playbook.
We will not be doing our own auctions. No. Okay. We aren't charging anybody for any of these listings. If you have something that's cool enough, it's got to go through our coolness filter. Occasionally, we will post something that's unique. We're also going to be bringing stuff like auction coverage, either going to auctions or watching them online, or telling you about the market, what's a good buy, what's something you should probably think about selling. We've got some people on board who are real critics of this stuff, and they really know what they're talking about. And then you've got me, who just likes to bullshit. So
yeah, I see that I see something about the Saturn S series, and I'm thinking maybe this is just a place for you to post hot takes as well.
That was not
you.
Me. That was my wife.
Ah.
She's just as bad as I am.
That's impossible.
You're right.
What's been like some of your favorite finds just in these early few days, week or two?
Yeah, we're 4 days in. Found a lot of really cool stuff. I liked the Celine S1 Cup that I posted yesterday. It's a racing series that never existed from a company that no longer exists, and you won't find any support for it anywhere. And Celine says that they created a bespoke engine, but it turns out it's actually an Ecotec. So, you know, really cool car.
Yeah.
It's, as far as anybody can tell, it's based on the Artega GT, which Henrik Fisker designed in 2006. And then, the rights for it were bought by a Chinese company, which merged with Celine, and they decided to start making them in 2019. It's like an aluminum chassis with carbon bodywork. It weighs like 2,500 pounds and has 440 horsepower. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But like, it's a race car that you're not going to be able to get support for. So I don't really know what purpose it has other than maybe you take it to a couple track days and then in 30 years you can do some vintage racing with it or something like that. But they're asking $100,000 for it. So it's like, is it a toy? Is it a cool, you know? But it's weird stuff like that gets me going because it barely existed. They ran one race and then the series shut down.
Amazing.
So,
I'll tell you what I like is this. I like this Pajero from Dakar with the Nikon sponsorship, which is so cool. There's unlike Canon, there's so few cars in racing history sponsored by Nikon.
Absolutely, yeah. That was Andrew Pastorella found that one, and a very, very cool car. It placed on the podium at Dakar, which is awesome.
That's amazing. And it's got this. It says on the side Sun Auto Mitsubishi, and Sun Auto is like I remember it was like a dealer group or something in France. Or something. They did those 914s.
Yes, they won at Le Mans with a 914, won their class. With a 914 in 1970. And
that's cool.
We're doing fun stuff too. I mean, Amanda, my wife, has a new post that went up that she found cars for sale that are all of the cars from the movie Clueless.
Oh, this is amazing.
So she went through Internet Movie Cars database and said, okay, well, this is something maybe we should do the Cars of Melrose Place because you guys would love that.
Chris, he's already making the list.
But she did the Cars of Clueless because she loved the movie and still does.
This is amazing.
And so she went through and found the 4 kind of hero cars from the movie and found versions of them for sale online on Craigslist or on eBay or whatever, and did a little, this is what I would have changed if I were casting the cars for the movie or whatever. So
that's fantastic.
It's kind of a fun little thing that she did, and we're just pulling
this
from
is a great idea.
Every little place. And we're going to have, if you're familiar with the Bid Nerds on YouTube, they are going to be joining us. It's a YouTube show that basically goes over the coolest cars and best finds and Porsche nerd stuff and whatever. It's basically a short podcast that posts daily on YouTube about cars that are on auction sites. So they're going to be joining us. We're going to be posting their videos on our site, and they're going to provide some content as well. So we're just putting together a team, and we're going to heist the internet.
Well, very cool. Thanks for telling me about this, and I'm adding it to my RSS reader. I'm going to check this out on the regular.
Fantastic. I'm sure you'll check it about as often as people listen to New for 96.
With any hope, yes.
Go check out parkedontheblock.com.
Well, that was interesting, if not rude.
Boy, there's a lot of cursing, but, that's how he likes to promote
You never
things.
know what you're going to get with Brad. And he's calling it Parked on the Block.
POB.
Yes.
I'm already starting that as a trend.
It's a rather grim segue.
Yes.
But I wanted to say something about Ken Block, who obviously by now you've seen the outpouring of support and nice words about the man. I mean, no one has anything bad to say about him. It sounds like he was just extremely cool, down to earth.
What a tragedy, yeah.
It totally is. And I just wanted to talk about a little bit. Everyone has covered what he has done in his career. Why do you think he connected with so many people? I mean, it is a genuine outpouring response of people that were moved by this and saddened by this. And so many people are like, I'm usually not down from celebrity deaths, but this one just really hit me. I've seen that over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
Why do you think that is?
He, I think, made automotive enthusiasm so approachable, and I think people who weren't even into cars, like, while they, weren't actively seeking to be witnessing something automotive, like they were, and he made it approachable because he had this otherworldly skill and ability for car control that was, it was like watching, Olympic figure skating,
right?
Like where
and not just the car control, but also having the creative minds with him to do cool stuff and capture it so well and film it. And we're talking when this was like, GoPro version 1 probably.
Absolutely.
With a lot of this stuff, and it's just like to capture it in such an artful and amazing way. Yeah. In these early days of YouTube and everything, it was so cool.
Yeah.
I think he like the way he made the cars move was like how it looked like when you play with Hot Wheels as a kid and you're drifting and sliding them around and doing these impossible things.
Sure.
And he did that with the cars, and it was captured. It was captured in such, amazing, all the spectacle to make it so cool.
Yeah.
And so just unreal. It was unlike anything we had ever seen.
Yeah.
And even after 10 Gymkhana videos, like it never failed to inspire. They just kept upping the ante.
I never once rolled my eyes at any of the stunts or anything like that. Like they were all just so original. I don't want to gush or also provide fluff to this, but it just was genuinely so cool. And I also didn't know that he was one of the co-founders of DC, like the shoes.
Yeah, that's how he made his money to get into racing.
Yeah,
like that. He made this successful business, and then he got into rallying at the age of 40.
We used to wear DC shoes all the time, when I was a teenager. Yeah. So that's very cool.
I love the thing, again, talking about the Hot Wheels thing, where he would, just throw the car backwards, and then the car all the tires are spinning, and then
Yeah.
the car just like starts to pull itself forward.
Yeah.
Amongst like all this force of physics, of inertia, and then it uses all the spinning tires and 1,000 horsepower or whatever to pull itself forward around some obstacle. It was just the coolest stuff. Like it's just that's like no one ever did that. It's so cool.
I think it's neat that he took the acrobatics involved with rally racing and turned it into like an art form, basically, which is cool because I mean, like it's incidental that rally cars move like they do. They just have to do that to get around the track, and then he took that and put it into like performance art.
And how can you you have this car that has this insane way of driving, and how can you showcase that in a spectacular way? And that's what they did. So I had dinner with Ken in 2016 in Canada at a rally, FIA rallycross. I was on a Ford trip. I mean, it was like 4 of us at the table. It wasn't like I was in the same room. It was like
cool.
We were at a table of 4.
Yeah.
It was his producer, Ron, and a guy from Ford, and Ken and me. And we just talked about, these videos and because they had just done Gymkhana that was, I think Dubai.
Okay.
And where it was like on a runway and there was like a 747 being towed and he's drifting around the wheels and all this stuff. It was so cool. And it was golden hour in that video. It was just so spectacular. I was just gushing about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. A really nice, like really amazing down to earth guy. He provided, he employed so many people and inspired, aside from the many millions of people he inspired, he like employed people and started so many people's careers.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember what you had for dinner that night?
I do not.
Do you remember what he had for dinner that night?
No.
Okay. Well then.
I do remember a different night I had poutine because I was in Quebec.
Do you just remember because it was called poutine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
As I recall, poutine is like cheese?
It's like cheese on French fries. It's like a whole bunch. It's like chili cheese on French fries and stuff, I think.
I gotta say,
a whole bunch of stuff.
It does not sound appetizing to me.
It's a regional
delicacy.
expression. Yeah,
it's a regional
delicacy.
expression. Another word that I find like a cuisine. I don't know why I'm transitioning into this, but like Vegemite.
Oh yeah.
I think we talked about this last week with Jordan.
Probably.
But anyways, I'm sorry.
We only cover like 3 things.
Yeah, I've like interrupted your tribute with poutine.
No, I think
and
that was
Vegemite.
it.
Okay,
that was about it. That was all I had.
Okay.
A different night on this trip, there was this guy who was like a local journalist in Quebec, and he was talking about how hostile Quebec is towards the English language.
I could see that, yes.
Like it used to be illegal to have English signage.
Oh my God.
And that was not changed. I think it was changed somewhat recently. My favorite Gymkhana was the one in LA with the unicorn. And he drifts around the donut shop and the LA River
Randy's
and all
Donuts.
that stuff.
Yeah.
We were in LA.
We were in LA.
Just not 1 month ago.
Speaking of which, boy, it seems like it was just a month or 2 ago.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it was a month ago.
It was exactly a month ago.
It was exactly a month ago.
Yeah.
That we were in LA. So we missed out. Originally, we would have been in LA perhaps a few months earlier than that for Luftgekühlt, but we didn't make that. Instead, we made it for another automotive event called
Autopia 2099.
Yeah, maybe I'll add the reverb, like the futuristic reverb to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe to this part where I say this. Anyways, so yeah, we went up to LA and the show was on a Sunday. We went up on a Friday, We
went up on Saturday. The show was on Sunday at Peterson Museum.
Yeah.
Saw lots of friends.
Saw a lot of friends in LA.
We had a good time.
Yeah. And weather was strangely cold.
Cold and misty.
Yeah, like
part of
it had been unseasonably cold in Houston, and it was actually, I think, colder there in LA.
What did you think of the show?
The show...
Yes.
Was very informative.
Oh, good.
Yes.
I'm glad.
Yes. I had never... Informative in that I had not seen several of these EVs up close and in person.
You got to sit in the back seat of a Hummer
I did.
pickup truck.
I did, yeah. Jeff Glucker had a Hummer EV.
The back seat is about the size of a Camaro's back seat.
The interior is surprisingly small. I mean, it was like being on top of a big piece of industrial machinery where like the cab is just like 10% of the car and everything else is the car. And we did like crab walk, the crab mode or whatever it is, which is a very unsettling series of like movements that the car does, which it basically just crawls. I mean, it walks like, or it rolls like a crab, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't really know what that mode is for, but I guess it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm not really sure. We've talked about, maybe we've talked about the Hummer EV before. We don't have to go into it, but like, it really seems like for that amount of money, there are so many better options.
I mean, I think it's horrific and
Yes.
awful on a philosophical level, but
Yes.
also all the other ones.
It's
Other than that,
10,000
it's
pounds.
fine.
It's 10,000 pounds. It goes up to my head, and if I'm standing up against the hood, basically.
Yeah.
I'm not that tall, but still. Otherwise, like I get why people are gonna buy it.
Right. We live in Texas.
Yeah. So there's no rhyme or reason. I guess just trying to figure out why it exists is stupid and a waste of brain cells. But we saw the ID Buzz, which
That was cool.
I thought you did not like it.
I didn't like the interior as much as Golson, but also
I liked the
like
interior.
I just like to jab at Golson and disagree with him on everything.
Daniel
and
Golson.
Yes, friend of the show. I like to try to counterpoint
Ruffle
everything.
his feathers?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I thought that the colors were a little weird on the inside, and I don't know.
I thought it was fun.
my-
It was very much in the spirit of like the new Beetle when it came out, in
Yeah.
that like I don't think it was meant to be like tasteful necessarily. I mean, I say that not to say that it was distasteful,
right.
but just that it was kind of daring in its interior color combination choices, materiality, etc. But I thought it was fun and clever, and I think it's gonna sell. And maybe in 10 years we're gonna look at it in the same way that we look at the new Beetle today. Or no, the new Beetle is over. 98 was the new Beetle, right?
Yeah, the new Beetle, which I don't know if we've talked about this on the pod, is a car that you put forth the theory you don't see them.
No,
You don't see new Beetles.
you do not see new Beetles. So, yeah, where have they gone? Like literally, I think I'll see one once a month,
Yeah, it's
If that.
about the same for me.
and they
As my
sold a
sister
lot of
points
them.
out, you see a lot more PT Cruisers.
You do see a lot more PT Cruisers. I see multiple convertible PT Cruisers, which is astonishing.
You know what's weird about that?
Huh?
Is that it's a two-door PT Cruiser, the convertible.
You're
like they
right.
never made a two-door coupe, but you could get a two-door convertible. Like it's very interesting.
They had to like re-engineer things
Retool the whole
to
thing.
make that thing.
Retool the whole thing.
Wow. Yeah. So ID Buzz,
Yep.
I think it's cool. I think it's gonna sell really well off the bat, and you
And
know,
on bat.
on bat too. I'm sure
God,
the premium will be quite high for
The
the
only
first few.
time that I see the Hummer awful truck thing is on bat.
Yeah.
Because every day there's one on there. There will be a Hummer truck over sticker on Bring a Trailer every day for the next year.
Oh, probably, yeah.
And then there will never be one on bat again.
Nope. And much like we don't see the newer Hummers, H1, H2s anymore. I mean, like I'll see that they've also gone the way of the new Beetle as well. I'll see one maybe once a month, one or the other.
I saw an H2 yesterday.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I'm curious about like the person. I wonder if they've just gone to some used car lot and said, "Well, I need an SUV. I guess this'll do."
No.
Or do
I
they
think-
seek that out?
I think people seek that out. Much
you?
like the Excursion, where it's like you're making a statement.
Yeah.
Horrible one.
What's weird is that, as a side note to the Excursion, which is basically just an F-250 with a top.
yeah.
I like the Centurion, the F-250 Centurion, which is
From like the 90s?
from the 90s.
Yeah.
That, for some reason, is really cool, and it's basically the same idea.
Right.
Although you can take off, like, it's kind of like a Bronco, where you can take
Right.
off the rear top.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I agree. The Excursion is just, it's such a good representation of like late 90s, early 2000s SUV XS.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I've always said I've said this on the pod before, but I remember the Excursion was such a target for like this is such consumption, like this is such excess.
Yeah.
It's like Target's not necessarily like a great company, but it's not Walmart, so everyone's like they're fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the Suburban is not like that much smaller, but the Excursion was just like this is a bridge too far, and it was kind of a target for that. And so I have this memory of like reading in the Chronicle, like autos section. It's like, oh, Ford is ending production of the Excursion, and then it just kept going for like 3 more years. Like I think they just got good press from ending production and just still made
kept
it
going
for
with
a few
it.
more model years.
So, and speaking of like just highly inefficient vehicles, the Hummer EV, as I understand it, is also it's an EV, but it's not green in any way.
No.
It is in fact like one of the most, if not the least efficient new EV on the market.
And it costs how much? $120,000?
That sounds about right, yeah. So there are just a lot of ways to go with that kind of money, but whatever. The show itself, what is your take on the show?
Well,
you did do photo lessons.
I did a little smartphone photo workshop. That was really fun. I was kind of...
And the car...
The car was the Espano Suiza.
Yep, that's the official...
Yes.
Per brand standards pronunciation.
Yes, I believe so. That might actually be the racist pronunciation. I don't know. It's a Spanish hypercar. You say that with quotes.
Yes.
I don't recognize the term hypercar. I think it's stupid. But yeah, it was purple carbon fiber, and it was the subject for a little photo workshop, which I actually got some, it was pretty satisfying. I got some good engagement and talked to people, and people seemed to actually connect with it. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The rest of the day was a little bit tough, just a little sore because, the rain it kind of looked like rain all day. It kind of kept the crowds away. And I think also the event was, it's like, we say it's like 10, they said it's like 10 to 4 on the schedule. And it's like, people are going to trickle in over the hours. If we had all the people at, 11 o'clock that we had throughout the day, it would have been totally madhouse.
Yeah.
But it was, as it was a little bit less so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, but it's done. I can officially say that Autopia 2099 might be on hiatus.
I see.
I checked with Brad on this. Let's see what I could say. Yeah, I think it's tough. We lost some of our founding partners that got too busy, and then Brad was the busiest probably, and I was busy, and Jeff did a really great job of, and I know he's busy too, and he did a great job of like, locking down the venue and getting people to come in and just doing promotion and contacting and stuff. And it was just tough. Like, this event might have been a little too soon, or just required more planning, more of us than we had to give currently.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's tough. And it's just, for the last 8 to 12 months, my passions have lied elsewhere. And my time is just it's tough. So it was fun, and we had a good trip. But I'm ready to
move on to the next.
Move on.
and
step back from that for a little bit, and maybe the time will be right, and people will be like, "We want this to come back," or whatever. I don't know. I mean, it was definitely fun. Our event a year ago was in end of 21 was really exciting and a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'd missed out on that. Happy to be able to attend
I'm
this
glad
one.
You did.
Yeah, and I did not bring an EV, but I did bring.
But I brought an EV.
You brought an EV.
It was the Kia Niro EV.
Yes.
What did we think of it?
You know what? Good car.
It was a good car.
Good car. You know what? It's so funny because, so when I was briefly driving it, because we had switched cars, for a period of the trip, I was driving.
We'll get to your car.
Okay,
we'll
fine.
get to your car. Let's talk about the Niro EV. This is all my segue game is all. It's all playing right into my hands.
It's a really well put together package, in that, like, I have nothing to complain about. Like, it's meant to be, if it fits right in the middle of the marketplace, as far as it's not like an economy car, but it's also not a premium car.
Right.
But it feels not lacking in any way. And I think sometimes that's the best thing you can say about an EV.
Definitely. I mean, there's been so many EVs where it's like I've driven where it's like this is so close to being really good, but it annoys me in these key ways. Or it's like this is a great car, but it is $100,000.
The one thing that I thought was interesting
Yes.
to note was that it did not have fabric seats. However, it nonetheless had printed fabric texture
Yes.
on, I believe, pleather or vegan leather or whatever it might have been.
Yes.
So that was a choice. I'm not sure why.
I know. When we picked it up, it was like, ooh, cloth seats. And then we sit down, and it's like...
Not quite cloth.
Not cloth.
It just simulated cloth. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and at one point, like there is interest in that car because when I was driving it at one point, I had parked it, and there was a guy in a Golf EV. He got out and he was like circling the car as I'm just like I was doing the parking meter, and he had questions about it, many of which I could not answer, but he was really interested in it. I mean, like he was going to replace the e-Golf with something like that.
Yeah.
And there's enthusiasm for it. So
this would be a killer replacement for that because this car was like $46,000 as tested. It had a 250-mile range, which is great for any price. I mean, that's killer for that price.
It is.
We drove it for 4 days. We took it up to the crest. We drove it down. We drove it all over, all weather conditions. We still had 50 miles left returning it. We never charged it.
No, we did not. Yeah. And it's unique enough looking.
It's funkier than a Soul as far as like, I mean, it's cooler than a Soul looking. It looks like a bigger Soul as far as the form factor kind of.
Yeah. It's got kind of a Chiron little
it's like
side
the
panel.
Audi R8 side blade.
Yeah.
It's like a chevron.
Yeah.
You said Chiron? I'm saying chevron. It's kind of a chevron shape.
Fine.
Ironic. Chevron.
Yes, indeed.
On an EV.
That said, I don't know, like, what does an EV6 cost? Although it's not really the same class, is it?
No, this is smaller.
It's smaller, yeah.
EV6 is, I think it's...
Is this Ioniq size?
$55,000 to $60,000. No, the Ioniq 5 and the EV6 are the same size.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
They're the same platform.
Is there an equivalent?
This is smaller. No, this is like... Okay, I don't know what this is. It might be like... No, I don't know. I was going to say it's like Sportage size, but there is a Nero gas version.
Yes,
so
there is.
So I could not tell you what the equivalent of this is, but it is a smaller size and a cheaper price. And it has like most of the amenities and features of the EV6.
Yeah.
And it was like a great size for LA because of parking, like parallel parking, just tight maneuvering, sitting in traffic for many, many, many minutes.
Yes.
It was really good at all those things.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, literally, I mean, with the tax credit, I don't know what it is at now, like $8,000,
I think
like
that ended.
Did it end?
I feel like that ended at the end of this last year.
It was extended.
Okay, maybe, you're probably right.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
But even at, under $50,000, it's still a really good deal. I mean, it has just about every feature you could want, dynamic cruise, semi-self-driving, heated everything.
Yeah.
Like, it was good.
And very, performance that you could not sneeze at. It felt very adequate,
very
more
zippy.
than adequate, very zippy, very fun.
On Angela's Crest, I was really surprised. Like, okay, so it didn't give you a lot of feedback,
right?
But it never felt like you were, even when you were hammering it at, I don't know, let's say 65%, like, it was still very confidence inspiring, as in, like, the tech was really holding you in place.
The tires were working. Like, you didn't feel like you were pushing it to the limit. Like, you just felt like, oh, like, this is just competently handling whatever I'm throwing at it.
Yeah.
And it was unfair. It was unfair to compare it to your Turo rental, which we went in on. We shared this. Which was very unfair because it was like one of the most engaging cars, even in its less than ideal configuration. Your Turo car, which was an E36 M3 convertible.
Yes. Last year, 1998. In Dakar yellow.
It was so good. And so comparing the EV6 to that, where you get into those back to back, I mean, not the EV6, sorry, the Nero EV, getting into those back to back where the E36 had so much feel.
Yeah.
And, the Nero, it cannot compete with that. But to its credit,
yes,
after this trip, when I picked up my Sport Cross the next day after we got home, and I'm like, oh, this is not the same as the E46 or the E36. You know, like because the Sport Cross, like the IS300, is was pretty clearly benchmarked on the E36.
Yeah.
Like they went after the E36. That
Yeah.
was the car that was developed against, and the IS300 just does not quite touch where the E36 gets as far as like the steering and all of that and the feel of everything. Even our E36 kind of had like kind of a weird pedal feel, but it still felt really good and really natural.
It was a higher mileage example. It was a convertible.
It was convertible and it was
automatic as well.
But it was great. It's just the steering felt really good.
I gotta say, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was. This is I'll admit this is the first E36 M3 that I have driven.
Me too.
And while it wasn't perhaps the most ideal configuration, like you said, I didn't know what to expect going into it. Honestly, I've always wanted one.
Yeah.
Like I've always wanted like an Estoril coupe.
Yeah.
Or a green sedan or something like that.
Totally.
But in manual, of course. This though, while not the ideal configuration, it still felt like it had just enough power.
It had plenty of power.
Yeah, I mean, like it kept up with modern day traffic very easily, if not like and then some.
Oh yeah.
And despite it being, I mean, it's an old German car, so it's gonna have like squeaks and rattles and whatnot. And this was the convertible too, which meant that it was going to be a little bit flexy, but it didn't feel that bad. In fact, it was pretty engaging.
Very engaging. And it revved, the transmission actually kept up with it pretty well.
Yeah.
Like I said, the steering feel, everything felt incredible. We took it on the crest and drove it, and we took some photos. I'm so glad that we did that.
Yeah.
We get to LA, we pick up our cars, we had lunch, we had coffee, and I'm looking at like the next 3 days, and we've got appointments with people, we're seeing friends, and we're going to be doing this, and we're doing Autopia 2099 on Sunday, and I'm like, look, I want to take photos of both of these cars.
Yeah.
I want to go drive Angela's Crest. I think the only time to do it is now, even though it's going to take us like 50 minutes just to get there.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. And I'm so glad we did, because we got some cool photos, and we got to really experience these cars outside of the traffic, because the rest of the drive, there was really not much engaging driving the rest of the weekend. So it was great. I loved that M3.
Honestly, like a good putter around town car too, because in a way
it would have been more frustrating in a manual in all the traffic we faced.
Yeah, maybe so. I'm a little less bothered by LA traffic, but I will say that like it's not quite slow car fast, but it's just enough so to where like you will rev it out a little bit. And I'm sure the manual, I would love to try the manual at some point in time to see, how much different that might be. And especially because it was a convertible. I'm a convertible fan.
Yeah.
And I put the top down, whenever I get the chance, whenever we rent a convertible. And I think I have a little bit more tolerance than you do for like road noise. And so I will have it down on the freeway, which I enjoy that. I mean, like, I could be behind, like, a diesel truck, just, soot blowing in my face, and I will still be happy with wind blowing in my hair, the whole thing. And this kind of, when we weren't moving fast, this was cool because the belt line was really low. Like, visibility was amazing. It felt like you were, like, in a Miata, kind of.
Totally.
And so I enjoyed that aspect of it,
I agree. I have less tolerance for a convertible like in Houston, where I'm not looking at the sights. You know what I mean? Like on a trip, I won't say vacation, but on a trip where you're taking some pleasure drives and you're seeing a new place and it is appealing and scenic, and I'm not trying to like listen to a podcast or something.
Yeah.
Like a convertible is great and it is great, but if it's like every day in my hometown, it would not be as fun in my experience.
Yeah.
But no, totally, I'm totally with you. It reminded me. Do you remember a couple years ago when I rented that the Z4M Coupe?
Yeah.
And I drove it with our friend Martin Grossinger's. I drove it back to back with his Z3 Coupe.
I had a yellow Toro then too.
Yeah, and it was driving the Z4 Coupe back to back with the Z3 Coupe.
Yeah.
Love both cars. The Z3, it's like clearly less of a sports car.
Yeah.
like the Z4 is like, oh, they were going after the Cayman and 911 and stuff. The Z3 is like, this is like a luxury Miata. And sometimes that's what you want.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how the E36 felt versus the E46, where it's like the belt line is so low, I'm so exposed. It's like, it's just more of a sports car in that traditional sense of sports car. Yeah. Less of a performance car.
Pleasurable at low speed where, you're going to spend 90% of the car's use. And so so many people are focused on like the upper end of a car's potential and or abilities. And while that's great, the low speed aspect of it, the experience is important too. Yeah. And this did provide that in spades. So I'm charmed by it. I'm absolutely charmed by it.
It blew away my expectations.
Yeah.
I really thought that the spec of it would make it just seem like an old 3 Series. Yeah. But it really was special. And the yellow looked so
the yellow was so good. The only thing then this is more of an age thing, I think, more than anything else. But that convertible top.
Oh my God, it's so funny.
I mean, it's an old convertible, and it took, 30 seconds to complete its whole dance.
And if you're picturing like an even slow 30 seconds, no. It was like there was like a section where it stops and you keep holding the button, and there's like a recoil when it like jolts back like a foot in 1/2 second, and then it just like slowly cranks down and it's like shaking.
The first 6 inches when it detaches from the A pillar is so slow. It is like you're not even sure if it's moving, and then suddenly it snaps back. And then the tonneau, so when this car, like, there was a clunk noise. I don't know if you ever noticed what that was.
You mean during the top operation or just driving?
No. Okay. No, during the top operation. Like, basically, I don't know if it was what part was misaligned, but basically the rear window, when it flips forward, and the tonneau flips backwards, one of them is not moving far enough, and so every single time you operate it and it gets like, I don't know, 30% or 70% back, there's a clunk where they collide.
Wow.
And I remember doing that with the owner because he was showing me how the top works.
Yes, I recorded it.
Yeah. He was very unconcerned that these two like pieces of the car were colliding with each other. And then he taught me how to like manually tuck in the roof because anyways, it's an old car. Yeah. It was an old car. I'm sure like something that was refreshed and renewed, it is a little smoother maybe. Mm-hmm. So, but I'm charmed, and honestly, if the right convertible even, I would absolutely be into that, especially in the right color.
And
it has
to
be the right
color.
As
90s convertible tops go, it's still pretty good. Like the convertible top operation.
Yes. One of the best looking convertibles, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Of all time. Like, it is the perfect boxy wedge, and it just looks right. It almost looks like it was designed to be a convertible. Yeah. Which is basically the best compliment I think you can give any convertible.
Totally.
So, into it.
Yes. Speaking of Dakar, Porsche released a 911 Dakar not 1.5 months ago, and we have not weighed our 2 cents upon that car. So I think we should. Yeah. So what is this car? Actually, I can tell you. I looked up the specs.
Okay.
This is so everyone knows about this car, but actually,
it's a 992.
It's a 992
lifted.
Safari. It's based on the Carrera 4 GTS. As far as the powertrain, it has some extra bells and whistles. The thing that gets me, my initial thought, and I will back this up just a little bit.
Can I ask you this before you go into the next 30 minutes?
Yes.
Do you think it's cool? Yes or no?
Begrudgingly, yes.
Okay, because it is cool.
Yeah. There
are a lot of things that surround it that are a little less cool, but now proceed with Kevin Rand.
Okay, well, you know what's not cool? The Lamborghini off-road Huracan. That is like the least cool thing I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. But so I looked up the specs on it just because I wanted to get this right, because my initial thought was that, you know, when you see like those quote unquote base version renders of cars where someone photoshopped like a
the
like
black bumpers.
Yeah, the unpainted bumpers and steelies and a bunch of stuff. Like that is kind of, this reminded me, but instead of charging you less money, they charge an extra $100,000.
Of course.
And at first it seemed like mechanically they've not really done much except add literally like $75,000 to the sticker price. I will go through what it has. So it's limited to 2,500 units. It has the cooling system from the turbo. It has the GT3's rear steering, carbon hood, and active engine mounts. And it has tow hooks, skid plates, and a locking center diff. So that comes at
I didn't know it had that, but that's cool.
An additional $72,000 over the Carrera 4 GTS, upon which it is mechanically nearly the same.
And no one is ever going to be able to buy one for that amount of money.
But I think the people that buy it will immediately make it uncool.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No one cool is ever going to own that car.
That is exactly right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that sums it
So,
up. I think that is the central quote of the Dakar.
I think that it is a really neat exercise, and I am not a fan of the decal packages that it comes with. In fact, I think it's just so much better if it's just a solid color.
Yeah.
And maybe someone will come up with a cool one. I especially hate the fake Rothmans livery because what does it say instead of Rothmans? Like race car or something, like just something generic.
Yeah.
Anyways, like I get it's a tribute and maybe it would have been cool.
It might say Rensport or I don't know.
Maybe it is Rensport. I feel like that's a business name.
I know, it's like Rough Roads.
Rough Roads. Yeah, it's just something, it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
One thing that I will say is neat, though, that is reflective of the company, is that this is, while Porsche did have the Dakar, etc., I don't know that they would have ever been inspired to do this if it were not for the customer interest by way of like this, all the Safari 911s that have popped up in the last, 5 to 10 years. And like, this is a car company that, once again, like does actually take interest in its customers' interests versus say like BMW, which we have many things to say about. But so I think it's really cool. It's just too bad that like it will never be owned by cool people. So
that actually reminds me of, like, I was thinking the other day about how Audi is like there's so much love for like 80s and Group B and all this, like, and turbofan wheels and box flares and all this cool boxy stuff, and like Audi would be so befitting to them to capitalize on that in some way with like integrating that into their design, and they like they have no part in that. Like they don't do anything that sort of like touches on that. Like that could really be an Audi owned aesthetic, like this boxy and 80s, like, like that kind of look in little flares or touches, and they don't touch any of that.
The problem is, of course, the Audi ownership demographic, which heritage, I don't believe is a factor in any form with buying an Audi. And
does anyone buy Audis now that all the worst people have moved on to Teslas?
I don't believe so, no. I haven't seen an Audi in 10 years. But
I text this to you. I text this to you like once a month.
Yes.
I don't know if I've ever seen a new Audi A8 in 10 years.
That is probably true.
If I have, I thought it was an A6.
Yes.
Every time I think I see an A8, it's an A6.
I would agree with you on that.
I don't think they've sold one in the last 8 years.
I
don't know what it looks like. I will not Google this.
It probably looks like a long A6. And I've looked them up before because like I figured they must be like a bargain now at this point, like a newish A8 of some kind. And they do exist, but yeah, it just has
looking
like
at used ones. We're talking like what's a new one? What generation are they on? When was the last redesign?
I think it's still on the same one from 20. I don't think they've actually redesigned it. I think it's been facelifted. Basically, they've just grafted the same like trapezoidal grill. No, not trapezoidal. You know the one, 5-sided. Wait,
it's a hexagon.
Six-sided
hexagon.
grill. Hexagon.
Yeah.
and the grill. So basically, just they all share the same grill. It's just small, medium, large. And while that used to be charming in an old Mercedes, it's less charming in a brand new Audi for some reason. It's weird when I meet new. I actually know. I have a friend. He and his husband have bought new Audis.
When you say bought, do you mean leased?
It is very possible.
Okay.
However, this could be a whole episode trying to dissect the psyche of the Audi owner. So,
yes.
Anyways, boy, that was a lot of ranting.
Sure was.
Yeah. We are basically one long, like our episodes are one long segment of like that Andy Rooney
You've already brought this up.
Chuffs my beans or whatever it is that he like called it.
Yes.
R.I.P. I think he's dead. I'm not really sure,
I'm sure
actually.
he
He
is.
was very old.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Of course, do join us soon for another episode of New for 96.
In 1 to 2 months.
No, it's 2023. It's a new season.
This is season 3.
Season 3. Can you believe it? They've renewed us for another season. So do follow us on Instagram at New for 96. Twitter, all the same, although
Not for long.
not for long.
Send us an email.
Send us an email.
New for 96 spelled out. That's NINETYSIX.
Feel like there's some missing letters there, but
Probably.
thanks for listening.
Bye.
Goodbye.